Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Fair Compare Weekly Video Podcast, episode number 38. My name is Rick Cini. I'm the co-founder and CEO of FairCompare.com. In this video podcast, we're going to be chatting about a couple of topics we haven't seen in the past before. One is, we talk about airline fees all the time. I think it's about time we actually get to talk about airline perks. We'll be chatting a bit about some airline perks. We'll also be talking about TSA PreCheck. Been in the news a lot, along with Global Entry, especially as it pertains to kids. So we'll chat a bit about that. We'll also talk about one of the events in our Adventurist app of the week. It's actually in Italy, where I'll be heading later this summer. So we'll chat a bit about that. And we'll also take a question from one of the people that has sent in one of the questions on customer.service@faircompare.com. And joining me today is my partner in crime from California, our editor at the site, Ann McDermott. Hey, Ann.
Hey, Rick, I think you're going to like the question from the fellow in Minneapolis. It's right up your alley. And but I'm delighted, most of all, to be able to talk about good news for a change.
Yeah, it's we had the United Stroop waffles. That was good news, and so we also have some breaking good news out of it, at least for people that are flying to Europe this summer with the biggest airline, at least on the continent of Europe, flying there. Ryanair actually dropping its bag fee. What's that all about, Ed?
Well, I guess this is part of their campaign to be nicer. They have a certain reputation for, just being pretty money grubbing, and gosh, I think there's a couple of airlines in the U.S. that have a similar reputation.
Well, they pretty much have adopted that model, I think.
Yeah, they did drop one of their bag prices by 50%. And they say that about 90% of their passengers will get some reduction in bag fees. So it's a nice little perk, and they had been pretty high. You were paying in some cases like £30 for was that a checked bag or a carry-on? I think that was a checked bag. They're calling it the Ryanair's Charm Offensive. And see.
Well, I've always thought Mr. O'Leary was quite charming.
He is.
If you get a chance, go Google his German press conference. That was quite charming a couple of years ago.
We have reported on all kinds of things that he suggested, including standing room only flights. He was saying, everybody will do it. If you just charge £1 a flight, a pound sterling per person, they'll all do it. And I was thinking to myself, gee, I might do that. But I wouldn't do the pay toilets on planes, which he strongly was recommending they do. However, it did not come to pass, fortunately.
Yeah, I thought a lot of that stuff was tongue-in-cheek, to be honest, as far as that was concerned. So it's hard for me to tell nowadays what's tongue-in-cheek anymore.
Yeah.
With the prevalence of social media, it's sort of like, is this really true or not really true? So the good news is what's true is you're going to pay less for your bag fees. Now, that being said, carrying huge bags around still isn't a great thing to do when you travel. Yeah.
Ryanair, they have, and I'm not sure if they still are, because they keep changing their bag fees. In fact, just a note to everyone, bag fees change all the time with very little notice. Airlines don't like to publicize that kind of thing, so always check before you go. But typically, I think Ryanair has been charging for carry-ons anyway. So, but as you point out, carry-ons are useful not just to avoid fees on certain airlines. They don't get lost, and carry-ons also they let you get out of the airport quicker. They're also useful.
They give you freedom to move around once you're there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just much easier in general, in my opinion. Now, I know I've seen some people with their steamer trunks, and hey, you know what? God bless you if you want to take a steamer trunk with you to Europe. I hope you have another person to carry it for you through the metro station. So, in general, hey, let's chat a little bit about some of these other things that we've been talking about. I noticed that the airlines, as part of their overall charm offensive. I've heard the actually term charm offensive more recently as far as investors are concerned and airlines,
Yeah.
even domestically. We've talked about the charm offensive. I know we mentioned Stroop waffles, which is one of my favorites, as we noted on a different podcast, United, actually, and I actually bought some. My daughter actually liked them. I wasn't a big fan, but we'll have to. And by the way, don't send me any comments. I know people love Stroop waffles. So, and as far as the entertainment on flights, we've seen some free, some paid. Southwest does that a little bit. We've seen that also with a few channels on live satellite on select aircraft. But it looks like Delta's jumping into let's have free entertainment, especially as the summertime travel kicks in here in early July.
Yeah, they say that starting July 1st, according to the airline's press release and other things that they have been saying, they are going to offer their industry-leading suite of onboard entertainment, that's how they put it, for free to all customers on two-class aircraft. Does that mean like the little planes probably won't have it?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess for the most part, not every aircraft in Delta's fleets has the seat-back TVs. It's only a certain ones, and certainly the 50 and 70 seat, and even the 100 seat smaller jets, the regional jets probably don't have that as well. So essentially, you have to be on the right flight. Typically, that's a 737 or an Airbus of some sort.
Well, they say that ultimately this will be available for free on 90% of their fleet, and this will give you movies, the TV shows, foreign films, songs, live satellite TV, which I guess means sports. Is that what sports?
Yes. Well, essentially, you're getting the equivalent of some of the direct TV stations because it's so you're getting live TV on aircraft. So that's part of the service. We've seen that on JetBlue for a long time. We saw that on Continental for a while.
Virgin America has a lot of free entertainment on their flights too.
Look, I mean, the airlines have profits. This is what you do when you have profits. You start to dial back the ratcheting down of consumers on fees, and what they're looking for is to make a little PR coup. I think a lot of people changed the way they actually consumed entertainment. A lot of people have their own iPads or have entertainment on their phones. So having seat-back TVs, the one draw I will admit is having live TV, especially if you're on a flight during the Super Bowl or something like that. That can always be very handy because streaming is not always very good on planes because the internet connections on planes just aren't very good.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's sometimes not very good on planes either are children. But we've talked about that before. Now it's time to talk about kids going through security, kids in pre-check, because you've been telling people to join pre-check, that it's a good deal, but we've gotten some questions about, what about kids? How do they join? Well, we've got some answers now. First of all, if you join pre-check and you're the adult or guardian, you will get your children age 12 and under get pre-check for free.
Yeah, no, I mean, essentially, you really don't need pre-check if your parents have pre-check as a kid until the age of 12. This means you can
13,
go with your...
Actually, 13.
Well, 12 and under, I guess, yeah. So basically, you have to slide in before your 13th birthday. So while you're during age 12, you can actually get in through the metal detector as part of pre-check. And in fact, by the way, if you don't even have pre-check, mom can take their kids 12 and under through the metal detector as well. So you don't even have to have pre-check to do that. That's just a little unknown fact there. So or dads in that case, but only one parent, unfortunately. So whoever gets left in the long line, you can be rest assured they won't be happy about it. I've been there before, and it was usually me, so I'm okay with that. Before they had global entry and pre-check, so definitely, once they hit 12. Now my daughter is a junior in high school right now, so we actually got a global entry for her because we like getting back through customs and immigration more quickly on the way back from international flights, which includes pre-check. You could do that at any age. In fact, I believe she initially signed up at age 8 or 9 for that. And by the way, and a couple of interesting tips also with kids, my daughter had to get a new passport recently.
Okay.
because it had expired, and it was kind of funny. She was, I don't know, 14 years old, and it still had her, 5-year-old picture on the passport,
Wow.
so it didn't match very well. Got her
Yeah.
new passport, but the one thing that I wanted to check into was to make sure what would happen to her pre-check and global entry with a change in passport. In this case, global entry. And by the way, you do have to go in and update your passport information before your next trip if you do actually get a renewal. So anybody that gets a renewal, including kids or anybody that gets a renewal, you have to go in and update your global entry, or the next time you go through security, you're going to have some troubles.
Did you have to pay again?
No, you just go online to the
Okay.
account that you signed up for global entry, and really you're entering the new effective date, so the issuance of the passport and when it expires. So all you're doing, in her case, they changed the passport number. So in some cases, you do have to change the passport number. Now, if you're changing your name on a passport, for example, you do actually have to go visit the folks at Global Entry at Customs and Border Patrol at that particular location, if only if you want to change your name as part of a new passport.
Somebody has been asking us if pre-check was worth the cost, particularly for families, and I used my calculator and I figured out that one adult and 2 kids, even if they just fly once a year, it breaks down to less than $6 per person for
Yeah.
even for a single flight a year. If you fly twice a year, it's about the cost of buying the 3 of you each a bottle of water. So, in other words, I guess the moral here is, yeah, it's worth it. It's really
well,
worth
yeah.
it.
Again, I think if you're as a parent, if you have pre-check and your kids are 5 or 6, you don't really have to sign them up for pre-check for a while, because they'll be able to get with you. You're gonna get more bang for your buck if you fly a couple times a year. If you actually go to an international destination at least once a year, coming back, that's when you want to get your kids under 12 global entry, just a little bit more. I think it's $15 more for 5 years than it is for pre-check. That way you get them through customs much easier as well. By the way, getting back through customs with kids is a little more complicated when only part of your family has global entry.
Yeah, and I do not have global entry. I'm going to get it before the next trip to Europe, because last time coming back, it was brutal.
I know
That
a lot of
line
people
was.
are. Yeah, I think the fact that it's been in the news quite a bit, they've said, at least the last transcript of the hearings I was hearing, was that they had about 4 times as many people as normal signing up for pre-check and global entry than they had, just because of the highlighting of that particular program.
And I can't imagine what it's like for a visitor from another country coming to the U.S. and to be greeted with this kind of horrendous lines. It's just like, oh boy, not a great impression. You know what I mean?
No, I remember the first time back in the late '80s and early '90s that I actually flew to Canada. It was a 3-hour wait to get through immigration. It did not sit well with me the next time I was about to buy a ticket to go to Canada. So it doesn't matter where it is, long lines. Look, I can deal with Disneyland's 30 to 45 minutes, but if it's 3 hours to do something and just basically they look at you and hit the stamp pretty quick, that seems a little bit overly painful. So hey, and by the way, Ann, I haven't seen Chicago in the news with big long lines yet. So it looks like TSA is at least mobilized for now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now we have a question from a customer. This is Thomas in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And he says, we're looking to go to Cancun for Thanksgiving on a Saturday to Saturday for a family vacation. They're going to be 17 people. And he says right now he's seeing prices around $835 nonstop round trip. And he says, is this the lowest price? He says, do the holidays have different rules for ticket purchase? Because he knows that he says he knows that you've mentioned the 3-month window
Sure.
for most purchases, but he says, well, are the holidays different? And
Yes.
he says he would love to be the hero of the day and save my thrifty father-in-law some money, because this trip is his yearly gift to all of us. And my only question for Thomas is, how do I become a member of your family?
Yeah, 17 at 800. I can do the math on that. That's over a 10 spot. So yeah, hopefully we can help them out there. Yeah. So a couple different things. Absolutely, there is a difference between holiday time periods, really more importantly, Christmas holiday, which tends to start around the December 15th, 16th time frame, all the way through the end of the first week in January, at least the first Wednesday in January.
Mm-hmm.
So in that particular case, you can buy your ticket really is up to 11 months in advance. You should be shopping all the time. They don't tend to drop very dramatically, especially to warm weather destinations like Mexico beaches, like in this case Cancun or the Caribbean. You won't see the ticket price, especially for non-stops, drop that dramatically. Now, I will have to say that 8:35 Minneapolis to Cancun likely will come down before now and Thanksgiving time. Now, with 17 people traveling, you have to do a couple different things. You have the option, and by the way, Saturday to Saturday is a perfect itinerary. That's going to be your cheapest itinerary. Sunday to Sunday probably is worse than $835 right now. So just be aware of that. So it's a great, those days are the cheapest days to fly, especially around that Thanksgiving time frame. With 17, you can also call the group desk. Anything on the airlines above 8, you actually can't book on their website anyway. So you'd have to book multiple reservations for a group of 17.
Wow.
Picking that same nonstop could actually, if you got some of the cheaper prices and you bought 7 or 8, you wouldn't see it reload with the next cheaper price with that. So so a couple things I would do. I'd call the group desk and say, hey, is it possible for me to get any discount? Now, I don't know what the connecting flights are. I didn't look at the particular dates out of Minneapolis, but I got a feeling the connecting flights are probably about 10 to 20% cheaper in this case. But I would expect that nonstop to come down to the low 700s, low to mid 700s before Thanksgiving hits around summertime. If they don't see it drop below 800, but I don't think you're going to get much cheaper than the low 700s, like say 730, 740 historically for a nonstop. You might be able to slide in, depending on the airline, in the high 5s, low 6s, but that's about the best you're going to get around Thanksgiving. Now, that's a $200 difference right there for 17 people. I mean, you're looking at almost close to $3,500 in that particular case. So group desk might give you a 10% discount for having 17, for example. I've seen them do that. If the price ends up being in the 800 range, you're looking at somewhere around $13,600 at 10% discount. You're going to save yourself, $1,300, $1,400 in that particular case. I'd call the group desk right now, see if they're willing to do something. You could do that at Delta, United, American, and in fact, in this case, I don't think Southwest flies out of Minneapolis yet, but they might connect in Houston, so you might want to check that as a potential route as well, because they are flying into Cancun now. So you might check that out and see if that's available to you as well. That might be, again, that's a connecting flight. It's going to be cheaper. But in this case, the rules of 3 months and for domestic and 5 months approximately for international don't really apply for Thanksgiving, nor do they apply for Christmas. You pretty much can shop year-round, and I wouldn't expect that price to drop much more than about 10%, to be honest.
Is Thanksgiving pretty much the worst time of the year to fly?
It depends, right? The Wednesday before Thanksgiving and the Sunday after are the 2 busiest days of the year, so those 2 particular days are typically very crowded and very expensive. This is sort of a Saturday to Saturday itinerary, so it's a much better itinerary for being on the cheaper days. But yeah, so that Tuesday, Wednesday tends to be the worst of the entire year because you have Christmas time spread out over a 3-week period. You have more flexibility on the dates you pick, and if you're trying to bracket, for example, Christmas Day or New Year's Day, it's a little bit easier to find some cheaper flights that way. Wednesday before and the Sunday after are really painful for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Thomas. That was a great question. And if anybody else has a question, please send it along to customer.service@faircompare.com, and Rick will help you out. And now, Eventurist. Where are we going today, Rick?
Yeah, no. Well, we're heading to Italy, up in the sort of north
Mm,
eastern coastline of Venice. So,
nice.
the International Film Festival. Clearly, we've heard a lot about the film festivals in Cannes and France, but there's one that's pretty big, and I haven't actually been to this particular one, but I know it's a really interesting event, and especially the dates, which are sort of the tail end of August, which is where the prices drop pretty dramatically through.
Oh,
I think it's a
yeah.
2 week period right there through early September. And the prices drop right now. We've seen prices drop, for example, to Rome on some of those flights from the East Coast. Typically, if you're sort of in the Midwest, you'll probably have to connect on the East Coast to get to Rome and over to Venice. Or if you make your way to New York, you can actually get to Venice directly. But those prices are going to drop pretty dramatically for that time frame, and certainly a really interesting place to visit. Plus, the train system's really awesome in Italy. You can zip around all over the place. In fact, I'm heading to Italy later this summer, so not to Venice this time. I'm going to be checking out Cinque Terre and a couple other of my favorite places, Florence to be included in there as well. So, awesome place to visit during the summertime. I'll have to admit, I've been to Europe many, many times, several dozen times, and I find the people, especially in the remote locations in Italy, to be some of the coolest people on the planet.
That's nice to hear. And if anybody wants to get more information about any of these topics, they can go to faircompare.com. That's for
Yeah, no,
sure.
check it out. Check out the Adventurous app. Download the app on both
Mm,
Google Play for your Android phone and for your iPhones on the iTunes App Store. Well, actually, it's the App Store, I guess. iTunes would be. You probably wouldn't find the app on iTunes, but because there's no song related to it. But in general, you can check those out, and you can also come to the blog. The blog's online. Sign up for the events as well. We'll send you out some notifications on that stuff
yeah.
as well. So check that out. I think we cracked the 200 mark on events that we're tracking, and I'm hoping to get up to 250 soon.
Thanks, Rick.